Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sam.
And we're Envy Board Gaming. And today we're going to be trying to influence ambassadors while we try to save some endangered species in the game Endangered. Let me show you how it's played, and then I'll come back and we'll give you our final thoughts. Endangered is a cooperative game for 1 to 5 players designed by Joe Hopkins. Art is done by Beth Sobel and Ben Flores and published by Grand Gamers Guild. Let's take a look at how it's played. Now for this video, I have chosen to do the tiger scenario for this teach. However, do know that in the base game, there are a couple different scenarios, obviously one being the tiger and the other being the sea otter. However, there is a giant panda scenario that you can get, as well as with the new expansion, there is a number of additional scenarios, including the sea turtles, polar bears, California condors, elephants, devil hole pupfish, and the jaguar and tapir scenarios as well. The game also does have a couple modules, or at least one module that I won't be covering during this teach, just to kind of give you a little bit more variety. Now, for each scenario, things are going to look a little bit different, but a general turn is going to work the exact same way. So know that everything I say for this tigers scenario might not necessarily hold completely true with any of the other scenarios, but the overall flow of the game is the exact same. You're going to have the same phases. You're going to be doing the exact same thing for each turn. There will just be some phases that may change depending on the scenario in which you play. So for this tiger scenario, I have already set up 2-player game essentially. And what you're going to be doing is players are going to be representing these conservationists, and you are trying to save the endangered animal of your choice, in this case, tigers. And the way you're going to do that is you are going to try and influence these different diplomats in order to vote yes in an upcoming vote in order to save these animals. So there are a certain number of rounds depending on the number of players in the game that is going to be kept track here with this little calendar token. Okay, and so in a 2-player game, you're going to have 8 or 9 rounds in order to win, and the more players, you will have fewer rounds. Okay, and so what you're going to do is, since it's cooperative, you can choose whoever goes first. In a 2-player game, it usually alternates back and forth, but I'll run you through how a typical turn is going to work. So on your turn, let's say I am the environmental lawyer. At the very beginning of the game, you're going to have an opportunity to choose a special ability for your character. Now, there are 3 that come for each character, and there is a number of characters. I believe there is a total of 6 that you can play as. And so this one is the environmentalist lawyer, which will let me, at the start of my turn, I can reveal the top card of an impact deck and then put it back on top, which I'll talk a little bit about here in a little bit, about what the impact deck is, and how it affects the game. Okay, and with these special abilities, you're going to see the name of a card down here that is going to be in your deck. Okay, and this is going to be one that you're going to be able to play right before the game begins. Now, if it's an action card, you'll immediately place it out here on the board, and it will become a action that you will be able to use for the game. All right, and for this one says that I can reveal the top card of the impact deck and then discard it or put it back on top. Okay, all right, and then on this side we have the TV wildlife host. And one thing I will point out actually about these is that they are double-sided, which is kind of nice. It's just strictly cosmetic, but depending if you want to play as a male or a female, then you have that option for this game. But anyway, for the TV wildlife hosts, again, they have 3 different abilities. This is just the one that I chose for this video. And this is that after rolling your action dice, you may discard a card from your hand to change all your action dice to any values you want. Okay, and we'll see why that might be important. All right, and then that one comes with the fundraising card, and this one, as you can see, is yellow. It is a once card, and so if this is the card for your ability, you will activate this and then discard this into your pile. So in this case, each player is going to get $1 million. Okay, so you'll get one, and this player will get $1 million. Okay, so at the beginning of your turn, let's say we choose the environmental order. Each player is going to draw 2 cards into their starting hand. All right, the environmental lawyer, let's say they go first. You're going to take your little player token here. You'll place it on top of the calendar token. And then you are going to, and you can have your cards open for everybody to see. But what you're going to do is you are going to roll your 3 dice. All right. So I got a 2, this was a 2, a 4, and a 3. And what you're going to be doing is you are going to be placing your dice out here on the board to take different actions. So let's take a look at the different actions that you have available to you. Now, as you can see, these actions are printed directly on the board. So depending on the scenario, no matter what scenario you choose on this side of the board, all of these actions are going to be the exact same. The board is double-sided for different environments. The other side is a water side, but the actions are the exact same that are printed here on the board. So what you're going to do is on your turn, you are going to be placing your dice out here on these different actions. And each space can be used 3 times, except for this one down here. It says no limits. So any number of dice can go there, but there will be some restrictions on how you place your dice. So I can, as a player, you can place your dice on any one of these actions. So let's say I went here. This action allows me to move 1 animal. So I can move 1 animal 1 space, and so I can pretty much just do that. I can move any way up, down, left, right, just not diagonal. That is not a valid move. Okay, now I cannot take the same action that I have already taken. So if my dice is there, I cannot take that action again. And in a 2-player game, you have to, let's say another player was there. For example, let's say our TV wildlife host had played there first, and this would be my second turn. So what would happen, because you're going to play all of your dice, and then the other players are going to go. But just for the sake of example, let's say this dice was there. What's going to happen in a 2-player game is that the dice I place there has to be at least a value 2 higher. So if this 2 was here, I would have to place at least a 4, a 5, or a 6 in order to go there. However, in a higher player count game, you'll only have to beat the value by 1. All right. So you will be placing your dice out onto the board to take different actions. So this one allows you to move 1 animal 1 space. This one allows you to spend $1 million in order to remove a destruction that is not adjacent to an animal. And remember, that does not include that diagonal is not considered adjacent, so you can get rid of those. This action here allows you to play a card. So I can play a card from my hand. So I might want to play this card here, which is going to allow me to add influence. And then let's say my last turn is I go here and I get to add 1 influence. All right. There is also one down here where you're able to draw more cards or gain money on your turn. Now, with the influence, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking these little green cubes and you'll be placing them over here on these ambassador cards. You don't know what the requirements are for these ambassadors in order to win until you place one of these ambassador or these influence cubes on them. And once you do, you will flip them over and those cards are going to tell you how you're going to win the game. All right. So for example, this Chinese ambassador card that we have here, they're looking for a number of animals in play. So currently I have 2, 4, 6, 8, and they want at least 10 or more. However, you're going to take that number of animals in play and you're going to add the number of influence cubes that are on this card. So as I put more and more influence cubes on that card, it's going to be easier to get to that objective. All right. So after you've placed out all of your dice and taking your actions, then you're going to go on to the offspring phase. So let's talk about the offspring phase. Now, with the tiger scenario, the offspring phase is going to work like this. You are going to count up the number of mating pairs. A mating pair is going to be for every 2 that is in 1 space. So if I had 4 here, that would be 2 mating pairs. But in this example right now, I only have 2 mating pairs. So what you're going to do is you're going to count up your mating pairs and you're going to add 1 to it. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to take this offspring dice and I'm going to give it a roll. And if it is less than or equal to the number that I needed, which was 3, I would then be able to add an offspring to the board. However, since I rolled a 5, I would not be able to. But let's say I rolled a 3. Then I will take one of the tigers as an offspring and I'll add it to the board, but it has to go in an empty space that is adjacent to any mating pair. Okay, you get to choose whichever mating pair you want to place. Again, remembering that adjacent is not a diagonal is not adjacent, so I could place it here. All right. If there are no available empty spaces that are adjacent to a mating pair, then you do not get to place an offspring. Also, if there are no tiger offspring in the supply, then you do not get to place an offspring. All right. So then after you complete your offspring phase, and remember this, just because this is the offspring phase for the tigers, that doesn't mean that this is how the offspring phase works in other scenarios. Each scenario might have a different way of handling the offspring phase. So after you've completed this, we will then move on to the destruction phase. So let's talk about that. Now, for the destruction phase on the tiger scenario, again, this could be different based on scenario, similar to that of what we did for the offspring phase. So what you're going to do is you are going to choose a row or column. All right. So let's say I took, row 2. Then I'm going to roll this destruction dice and I'm going to put a destruction tile on that space. So 5 of row 2, that is where a destruction tile goes. However, let's say I rolled a 2. I would then place that destruction tile here, and if there are any animals on that tile, they are then lost. Okay. Now, let's say I had this here, and this was the scenario, and I rolled a 2. I would go to apply this destruction tile to the board. However, there's already one there. So what you were going to do is you were going to move this destruction tile 1 space towards the closest animal. So I would have to move it over here, and then that animal would be lost. All right. So if you do roll a space that already has a destruction tile, it will move closer towards your animals. All right. And so that is how the destruction phase works in the tiger scenario. Next, you're going to move on to the impact phase. Now, for the impact phase, this is pretty much going to be the same across all scenarios. What you're going to do is you're going to come over here to the impact deck, and this is going to be a deck of various events that are going to occur during the game. All right, so you're going to take this card on top, and you're going to flip it over, and you're going to read what it says, and that's how it's going to affect the game. So in this case, it's a persistent impact. When a tiger sighting card enters play, lose 1 animal adjacent to a deforestation tile. All right, so since this is a persistent impact, this is going to stay active throughout the game until it is removed. All right, so as you know, earlier in the teach, I talked about the environmentalist, the environmental lawyer who has the opportunity to look at the top card of the deck and then put it back, which will give you a sense of an idea of what kind of event is coming, and maybe even give you an opportunity to decide, do I want to use one of my actions on perhaps the research card that we have that allows us to discard that top card of the deck, and that is a good way for you to kind of have an idea of what's coming down the pipeline for this game and what to expect. Because maybe next round, I want to take a look at this card and, oh, look, it's the tiger sighting that this one's referring to. All right. So I don't want this one to then trigger that. Or, maybe I can play a card that allows me to get rid of a persistent impact card. Or maybe I just want to get rid of this card altogether and don't have to worry about that playing off of each other. All right. So that's how that is going to work when it comes to the impact phase. If they're persistent, they're going to stay out there and stay active. If they are, one of these instant impact cards, you're going to use it and then put it in a discard pile. All right. And then after you do the impact phase, then the last part of your turn is going to be the upkeep phase, where you are going to draw 1 new card into your hand of cards. All right. So you'll always get that. and then it will go to the next person's turn. And what they're going to do is then take their token, place it on the calendar that we showed earlier, and they're going to continue on to the action phase where they will be placing out their dice on the board. So as you're playing, you're going to have more and more actions. As you play more cards, you're going to have more things that are going on, more actions available to you, and this is also going to be affecting the board as these animals are moving, trying to mate. More deforestation tiles come out. You're going to be revealing more ambassadors, and when you get to this 8th or 9th round, you're going to have a vote. And the way that's going to be is you're going to come up here looking at these ambassadors, and you're going to see how many of their requirements you have met. Now, if they're not flipped over, they obviously can't vote. So if you have not revealed them, they're not going to be a yes. But you have to get at least a 4 yes vote in order to pass. And the kind of objectives you're going to be looking at, it could be as simple as you're going to roll a dice, and you're going to take the value of the dice, add the influence cubes, and if it meets a certain number, you succeed. If not, it's a no. Over here, you're going to be looking at ambassadors, and in this one for Peru, once the number of ambassadors that have at least 1 influence cube on them, so you might want to try to get influence on everybody, even if they're not going to be a yes vote, and then get influence here to make it to 10. Over here, you're looking for a certain number. This is 14 cards in play. But again, you're going to be adding the influence card cubes that are on that card. And then finally, this one here is asking for, instant effect cards. As you can see on this, it has a little lightning bolt. Now, these are not the only 6 country ambassadors. There are a number of cards. So each game is going to be a little bit different because you're going to have different ambassadors. You're going to have different, players that you're going to be being, different abilities, different cards are going to come down, different scenarios. So you're going to have a lot of different options. But overall, this is how you play a game of Endangered. It's just might change a little bit from scenario to scenario, but overall the flow of the game is going to work the exact same. And that's how you play Endangered. One last thing I did forget to mention. So you win if you get four yes votes, right? However, how do you lose the game? You're going to lose the game in a number of different ways. One way is going to be if you are down to 0 or 1 animals on your board, because obviously they can't reproduce if there's less than 2. So if you ever fall below, if you have 0 or 1 animal on the board, then you're going to lose. Also, if you have to place a destruction tile and there are none left, you also lose. So that is how you lose the game, and then you need the 4 yes votes in order to win the game. So that's how you win, that's how you lose, and that's how you play Endangered. All right, and that's how you play Endangered. So we're going to jump right in and let you know what we think. And so I'll just kick it off. One thing I feel like every time I pull this out, and I was actually doing this even right before we were recording, is whenever I see the animals and the stories and stuff, I just think of, that song in the back of my head by what's her name again?
Sarah McLachlan.
Sarah McLachlan song, and
it's the ASPCA commercial.
There you go. Yes, that commercial. I always think of that, and
with the sad
and that's the way I feel sometimes when I'm playing, because so in this game. Well, first let me tell you a little bit before I jump into it. But so we got this game through Kickstarter this year, delivered. If you watched the unboxing that we did a couple months ago, you could see all the different stuff that we got, and you notice I missed the pupfish. Well, just an update: the pupfish have arrived.
Yeah.
The first school of pupfish that were sent did. Some of them swam away through the packaging.
Through the mail.
Right, and then I got the rest of them later. So we did get all of the pupfish. Mm-hmm. They are safe in the box now, which is great.
Them now.
Right, yeah, we could save them. And so, but it is a new game for us this year. I know the base game has been out for a little while, and they came out with the new expansion, which is new species. And they do have the panda scenario that you can get, as well as its own little box that you can get. And so with that being said, now we're able to play everything, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. But I really liked, when I played this game, I thought of Sarah McLachlan and the song and from ASPCA and everything, because when I'm playing the game, you get to be like a celebrity, or you get to be a philanthropist, or you get to be a environmentalist lawyer, or whatever, a zoologist, or all these different people. And whenever I play the celebrity, I just think of those where they put the people's faces on those infomercials and ask you to donate money. And so, yeah, it just feels like that because in the game, that's kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to raise support. And then you're spending millions of dollars to influence these ambassadors from all these different countries in order for them to vote on your issue about saving these endangered animals. And you have to get enough votes. And all the while you're trying to do this, you also have the direct impact on those animals where you can't just focus on politics, but you have to actually help get rid of the garbage that's in the sea or stop forest fires or, all the different destruction that happens in the game. And there's 9 different scenarios out right now. And I know for a fact, based on the Kickstarter updates and comments and stuff that I've been following, even post campaign, that they're already working on additional scenarios. I know of at least one that they had mentioned, which was the monarch butterflies. So that was one that they're talking about. And I know even throughout the entire campaign, they were throwing out more and more ideas and all this stuff. So it sounds like they have a plethora of material that they could still, if they wanted to, expand this game even more and work with. And I think they've done a great job with that. Joe Hopkins did a great job with the design. Obviously, Beth Sobel and Ben Flores, their art is super nice. I really enjoy looking at that. Gamers Guild, they did a great job with the publication of it. So it's a really good team, and I'm excited to see what comes out with that even more. But with those 9 scenarios, what I really liked was the fact that no matter what scenario you played, everything was the same. Like, you were doing the same kinds of actions. The flow of a round was the same. But depending on the scenario, it could feel very different. So, I mean, even if one game I'm playing and I'm trying to save the sea turtles, that game is going to feel drastically different from the game when I go and save the elephants. They put a lot of time and effort and thought into how they make that thematic sense not feel like the elephants and the turtles are the same thing. They feel like you're actually saving different animals, not just the wooden pieces that are out there. And you have the double-sided board, which helps, and it's all a grid, but it really does feel different, and it feels like you're actually working towards that specific crisis. So I appreciated that in the game, and I really liked that. So that was one thing that I see a lot of replayability, because one, you have a ton of different characters to play from, a ton of different scenarios to play from, which was really nice. So, but yeah, that's some of the positives that I saw in the game that I really liked. What do you think? What are some of your positives?
Well, I like that it was thematic. Obviously, that's a huge bonus for me with playing games. And I was really excited about this game, because, I love animals, but also it was different than any game I've ever played. I haven't played anything that's like with endangered animals. So I thought that was cool. Like, you're saving them and you have your own roles. I like, also a huge positive is the replayability, because each game is different and you can pick which animal you want to try to save, and it does feel very thematic in the way that you're saving them. And then, the impact cards are specific to each animal too. So that could be different depending on if you play like the elephants versus the polar bears or the sea turtles or whatever. So they're all very different, and I like that. And I think too, I like that it's also like a relatively quick game. It says it was like 60 minutes? Yeah. And I mean, I think you can play it possibly faster than that, but I mean, it is a quick game.
Yeah, 60 minutes.
Yeah, so it's a quick game, and I like that it's you're working as a team trying to save these animals. So, and you each have your own role as, and what we've found is kind of like you got to have the right team of people.
Right, you can't all go. That's a good point, because if you go in and it's like, oh, I'm gonna be the philanthropist, you be the celebrity, someone else be an environmentalist, whatever. You don't have a lot of the animal experts that I've noticed. So, because we've done that where it's been you're the philanthropist and I'm the celebrity, and we're great at raising money and getting influence, but it's getting to those rounds where we actually vote, because then we have all this destruction coming because we're so focused on the political stuff, but our characters aren't necessarily geared towards helping keep the animals alive.
Yeah, so you need those animal experts, like you need the zoologist, or there's a couple other ones, but like I personally played the zoologist, and like you're in charge of moving those animals to get them away from the destruction, and you're trying to literally save them, whereas the celebrity, the philanthropist, like they're trying to raise the money. So you each kind of have your own job to play, but you have to be very careful of who you choose.
Right.
Like, okay, are you going to be someone that raises money? And then you need at least one person, I feel like, who's going to be trying to move the animals around and try to save them.
I would be curious I haven't played it solo. I know you can. I would be curious to see how that works.
Yeah.
And not to say that like the environmentalist lawyer isn't good at, getting rid of the destruction tiles. But I would say that a lot of your cards are going to be geared towards more of the political stuff. Getting the influence, spending the cash, getting cash, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And even your special abilities are going to play some sort of role into that. Like with the celebrity, if I'm spending cash, I can help my other opponent or my other teammate draw cards, with one of their abilities. And that's the thing that also ties into replayability, is that not only do you have multiple characters that you can choose from, but the ability that you choose for each character could change. Because each one has at least 3 different character abilities that you can choose from. Right. And depending on which one you choose, you start with a different starting card. And so that's kind of nice too, trying to find maybe those players that link up really nicely together and being able to do things.
Yeah, you have to pay attention to that.
Right. So I like that. It's got a nice bit of thinky strategy to it. And you can increase the difficulty if you find the scenarios to be too easy. I know for us, we only won one time, but we won.
To be fair, we did play on the hard difficulty the first 2 times that we played.
Right, but we did eventually win one.
We
not
did.
Not on hard, it was on easy, but still. But yeah, so do you have any negatives that you want to bring out about the game?
I feel like some of the cards, the player cards, they're repeated a lot. We have a lot of the same cards, basically the same abilities that can be good, but also can be kind of we all have the same thing. Right. So you could, the cards that you're drawing, you could be like, oh, well, those are already out there. And so I think that probably would be my only negative, is just that there's not a lot of variety when it comes to, you have your special ability in whatever role you play, but the player cards are identical.
Right. A lot of the cards, there's a lot of overlap between the player decks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Definitely. The overlap there.
Because it'd be cool if you had kind of more that's unique to you as a player, as your whatever job you're playing, because then you could be like, oh, well, I have this cool thing that I can do. I know you have your special player abilities, so maybe you can have the same decks, but I think that would have been cool if they just threw in a few extra. Right.
There are some similarities, and there'll be certain cards, and I'll be like, well, we don't really need 2 or 3 of the same card out there. So I get that, especially if it's a 2-player game, and you have, between the two of you, have 4 or 5 copies of the same card. Yeah. You're like, well, we don't need them all out there, kind of thing. But I guess you could always discard them to use different actions. But I get what you're saying. Yeah. So, I get that. I think the only thing about the negatives for me is, I guess, I'm trying to, I don't know. I guess I do kind of stick there with the whole, wanting there to be some more variety. I think turns are pretty smooth. I don't have any issues really too much with them being smooth. Every single turn you're taking your actions, and then you have the offspring, and then you have the destruction, and then you have your impact and upkeep and all that stuff. So turns are pretty smooth. I don't know if I have, other than that, I think you took the only one that I could really think of. But I mean, it's a pretty really well done game. I mean, yes, there's a little bit of luck to it, depending on the cards. Like, you might just get unlucky with that impact deck.
Yeah, the luck.
And that's
part
some
of
stuff
it.
that really can that can tie into whether or not you're going to win or lose. If you get a lot of, if you don't get the cards that get rid of persistent impacts, and you get a lot of persistent impacts, like, you can kind of be like, well, I feel like there's a point where you could be halfway through the game and be like, we're going to lose. We might as well stop and start over again. So the luck could do that. I could see that being a negative as well.
Yeah,
It's just based on the cards that you get, and based on, the impact cards that happen. Yeah. And, you are rolling dice for a lot of the destructions, and, it could just be, but, I mean,
there's a lot of luck involved. Yeah. There's strategy, but there's also a lot of luck involved with the dice. So if you're kind of just rolling,
you can mitigate the luck. There are cards that let you peek at the impact cards. Right. You have an idea of what's coming up. But again, you have to get those cards, and you have to roll the right dice. And sometimes you just got to get lucky saving these animals. Yeah. And so, yeah. So, yeah, I guess that is, a bit of a negative as well. But, again, there's ways to mitigate it a little bit. But sometimes there have been games where I'm like, we're pretty much already done. We might as well just wipe the board and start over again.
We didn't save the animals. We sometimes, halfway through.
Polar bears were dead. They're gone. Dead polar bears. That's so just what it was. But yeah, so those are my negatives for the game. But we'll jump in. What would you give this rating for this game? Or if you want me to go first.
You go first.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, this is a solid 8. And it's because I really like the replayability. I really like the theme. You're going out and saving animals. Yeah. It's a great little co-op game. The little give and take of where do I want to put my low number dice so other people can go there if they need to use that same action. I feel like I'm actually playing different games. Like I said, like there's 9 different scenarios and they all feel different based on how they work. Right. And so I enjoy that. So for me, I give this a solid 8. I like the team that is working on this game. I'm excited to see, if and what comes out next. Like I said, I'd heard about the monarch butterflies becoming a thing. I'm pretty sure it was monarch butterflies. But yeah, and even my experience with the Kickstarter was really good. Not that, I'm trying to rate the company and everything, but I had a great experience with the Kickstarter. I really enjoyed the people that work on it, and even their customer service was good from when I lost my pupfish. They swam away. And so that's good. Overall, I've had a great experience, and I'm looking forward to more. So yeah, an 8 for me.
Well, I kind of wish I would have went first because I'm giving it an 8 as well.
Oh, you sure you're not just copying me?
I'm not. Okay. I'm not. But I thought hard about this one because I really was like, is it like a 7.5 or is it more of an 8? But I'm going to go for an 8 because you're saving animals, so you could a lot more for that. So
right.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with an 8.
All right. Well, there you go. 8. So if you like cooperative games, if you want a game that, there's plenty of variety when you play and you don't mind a little bit of luck, I would say definitely check this one out. It feels different from other games. It's a theme that I don't necessarily see very often, saving animals. So, I mean, it's a pretty fun game, and you can't really beat the art. And
the art is very nice.
Yeah, they do a great job.
I would say that's like a positive for the game too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Beth Sobel and Ben Forrest, they're great.
And the cute little animal miniatures.
Yeah, the minis are really good quality production. So 8s from both of us. Really fun game. Go check it out if you get the chance. Highly recommend it. So please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, click the little bell icon so you get a notification every single time we post a video. And let us know if you've played this game, what is your favorite scenario to play? If you haven't, are you expecting to play it? Just kind of curious what your thoughts are. And we'll see you guys all on the next one. Thank you and have a good one.
Bye.